Welcome back, you guys. We got a nice day out here. This is the first day of the year that I have not had to actually use a coat. I'm just in a jacket and a vest, and boy does it feel nice to not feel like you just can't move or feel like you're the Michelin man sitting on your motorcycle, you know? I can't be the only one who just despises having to put on all that extra shit. It restricts your mobility so much. But we're there, we're here. I'm fucking ready for it. So for today's video, I kind of wanted to talk about my Sportster S, obviously. But today we're gonna do the first 1,000-mile review over it. I'm at 978 at the exact moment right now, and I figured, heck, here soon I'm about to have to take her up to the shop. I'm not gonna have her for a couple days or so probably when that happens, and so why not go ahead and make the first 1,000-mile review, because who doesn't want to know about that when they're buying a brand new bike, you know? So for starters, I wanted to jump in on the fact that so far that I've had this bike, it has been really reliable. I have not had any issues. Okay, so I guess that's a little bit of a lie. The only issue that I've had with this bike personally is the non-starting issue it has every once in a while, which really isn't even every once in a while. It's mainly when it's cold, I think, because now that we're in warmer weather, I've noticed it hasn't been having the same troubles. But it's not like the bike won't start. It just kind of lazily tries to start the first time, and then sometimes you have to reset it by just, you know, turning the bike off, letting it turn all the way off, and then turning it back on, and then it fires up just fine. Which, honestly, for as much as these bikes are, they should have that worked out. That shouldn't be an issue, but it is. So that is one flaw the bike definitely does have. But so far, that has been the only flaw this bike has had. So I'm pretty grateful for that. And as far as rideability goes, I just love this bike for around town. And now that I'm more accustomed to the bike, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel quite as uncomfortable as it once did, especially without all this other stuff on me. That's one thing I've noticed with the little bit of riding that I've done out today before I went ahead and threw the camera on, is that, you know, this bike really isn't that uncomfortable. And I've talked a little bit on it because I figured, you know, it was a little uncomfortable for sure, and it still is just a tad bit uncomfortable, but it's not nowhere near as bad as you would think. So I'm really excited so far about that, because I was really worried about this bike not being very comfortable for any amount of time at all, you know. But I did want the sport aspect of it, which was ultimately what we got this bike about. But summer's coming here, and I definitely am going to be doing some longer rides. So as I keep that in mind, I've just been kind of judging it as we go along on whether or not I think it would be doable for any long trips. I think it'll be all right, but you know, obviously there is going to be better stuff to do it on. But I think that if you do like 80% city riding or town riding, you know, and you don't find yourself taking too many big long trips, I think the bike is going to be just fine for it, which is essentially what I do, honestly. Part of motorcycling at first you're going to find is you need to find what kind of ride you're doing, and everybody thinks they know what kind of riding they're going to do right off the bat, but that's not true. You know, yeah, you're going to get into it and you might find out that you like different aspects of riding better than other kinds, and so you find yourself doing that more often, and the first bike you get may not be the bike that you want after about a year. Not even because of power, but because you might want to do something completely different on the bike. But that's a little off tangent. Back on topic a little here. Another thing I think is really good about this bike is one other subscriber noticed this too. The bike rides beautifully right at 3,000 to 4,000. You can just sit here and ride it. Right now I'm at 25, almost 3, and one of those, actually it's at 3. And so, you know, I'm just cruising in 3rd gear. The bike's not like hating it. I'm not lugging it out, and that's really nice. It's not fucking real weird. I'm able to just ride it at this calm speed. 20 miles an hour does not feel that bad. And then whenever you're ready for it, it just snaps and it opens up. You know, the way they designed this engine is just crazy, because all the way up until that 4,000 point, it's nice and calm, and then it's like you cross that 4,000 point and it's like the bike just becomes an animal. And you know, the crazy part about that is I still haven't even drove this bike without all the nannies on. I mean, we out here just ripping it with all the nannies on and everything, and I've heard the bike gets even crazier without all the nannies on. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that this bike, you know, I keep seeing a bunch of people talk about the Lowrider ST and all these other cruisers that are coming out and the power aspect of it, and sometimes I feel like they're ignoring this bike a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's like, oh yeah, the Lowrider ST and all the Milwaukee 8. I'm like, bro, what about this? I'm like, this right here is, it's on it, dude. And apparently, from what the little bit of feedback I've got, which I definitely appreciate from you guys, on the windshield, you know, I'm really on the fence about getting it. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with getting that windshield, because the more I think about it, I do kind of like it. So why not throw it on there? And it'd be interesting. You know, I can only find one other bike on YouTube that has that, and that's that picture that I showed you guys. Is it just like a screenshot off of that video? But power is definitely one thing I want to speak about on this bike, because this right here is going to be, admittedly, the biggest selling point for me in this bike. I personally don't put enough miles down doing long trips to honestly justify getting something like a big bagger or something like that. And so for me, this is like crossing both those lines for me. Woo, that was nice, boy. And I'm getting that perfect amount of sportiness and cruiseriness, and I really love it. And I think that if you're one of those people who, man, you're just really on the fence on whether or not you want something sporty or if you want something cruisery, or something like that guy right there, that's a Sportster. See, those bikes look beautiful, and I'd love, you know, I couldn't even say right now if I was on one of those I would be disappointed, because honestly I wouldn't be disappointed. I really enjoyed my last iron, but as I said, I wanted something with a little bit more power, you know, and I'm just kind of chasing that one down. And the cruiser section is slowly getting that way, especially with all the sport cruisers. And that's, I kind of think to myself, what do I want to classify this bike as? Because you could call it a naked bike, I feel like. You could call it a sport cruiser, or you could call it a muscle bike. And I feel like it could honestly fit into every one of those categories just fine, without anybody really turning their head up at it too much. And I've seen quite a few other people do some 1,000-mile reviews, and I want mine to kind of be a little bit different. And so I'm just kind of trying to give y'all a roundabout about my kind of thoughts on all this as well. Me personally, I don't know, I don't obsess over too many crazy things when it comes to these bikes. There's nothing that crazy that stands out to me and I'm like, that bugs me about the bike, like, oh, I have to get gas very often, or you know, the seating arrangement was just a killer, because I feel like that's all stuff that you just get used to whenever you switch a bike. I feel like you're going to be uncomfortable a little bit switching between pretty much any bike. Now I may be a little bit wrong on that, because the cruisers, a lot of them are super similar, and so it's not that bad switching from one to the other. But I'm pretty sure besides that, if you just rule that one particular thing out, that they all feel completely different, and they're all gonna feel a little uncomfortable at the first. But I do have to keep in mind that with a bike like this, my youth does kind of pay me some favors when it comes to that. You know, maybe an older person wouldn't necessarily feel as at home on this bike, but I don't even honestly feel like I can say that that's true, because I've seen now like 2 or 3 older dudes who have these bikes, and I mean like big gray beards, you know, and they love the bike and they be out there ripping on it, and it's like, yeah, who said an old man can't ride a fast bike? You know what I mean? And if it's comfortable enough for them, surely it's comfortable enough for anybody under 40 years old, 50 years old, without it being too bad. And honestly, I think after I switch some things up on here, like if I get that front fairing that I'm thinking about, I'm gonna throw some ape hangers on this. Maybe I don't want them super tall, or maybe not even ape hangers. Maybe if I can just find some risers that'll put me closer to where I want my hands. I want to see how well this will do some touring, because the flat seat at first I thought might be uncomfortable, but I have had no problems comfortability wise with the seat. The seat's been extremely comfortable the entire time, and that's one thing I've heard some people complain about, and me personally, I can't complain about it. My butt's not hurting. And the iron I had, it had a Mongoose Biltwell seat on it, and that thing, dude, just hurt my butt cheeks all the way down to the tailbone, man. I tell you what, I'd get off that bike for riding 30 minutes, and I have rode 30 minutes on this bike for sure, and my butt would be hurting so bad that I would have to get up and stand around and stretch for a minute before I could even think about sitting back on that rock of a seat. And this is a stock seat, and I'm not having that issue. So for me, other than the adjusting period, comfortability when it comes to this bike just really wasn't bad for me. It's a little bit stressful, I think, on my mid-back. I can feel that because I'm sloped over a little bit, grabbing onto these handlebars. But that's not the worst, and I think that if I was to move them up even, honestly, probably about 1 inch to 2 inches higher, if these had just a little bit more of a rise on them, yeah, I wouldn't even need to change the bars on it, you know. And I'm still debating on whether or not I'm gonna change up too much on the bike, because I'm really happy with it, you know. I was worried that I was gonna regret the Sportster, because this is really new, and everybody always, you know, throws their hat in the bucket when it comes to this and says that, you know, these new motors and the new bikes are kind of sketchy. You never know if you're gonna have something that's bad or good until you get some years down the road. They could still decide that they're not going to make this bike after next year or the year after that, and you know, I'd be kind of SOL for quite a little while I'm waiting to get into something different. Because if the aftermarket doesn't pick up on this bike, I don't think anybody is really going to be worried about it at that point. If it's just this, if it's this, no aftermarket support like they did with the V-Rod and stuff like that, and I understand there might be a little bit there, but I'm talking about big aftermarket support where you can actually count on the fact that there's going to be some companies out there offering you some stuff for it. You know, if that doesn't happen with this, I think that will put a pretty big damper on this bike. But overall, I'm not too worried about it. The more I play around on it, the more I find myself happier and happier with this bike anyways, so. Gotta take it where I can get it. That guy was pretty nice. I appreciate that. But that's pretty much it for my 1,000-mile review, you guys. I've got to say I'm really happy with it. The bike's not super uncomfortable, and I haven't had any reliability issues with the bike, so I kind of can't down it at all in any aspect. And so I just kind of wanted to share that with you guys. If there's anybody out there that's scared that these bikes are going to be a bomb waiting to happen between their legs, I would say that they're not. I really enjoy this bike, and the more time I spend on it, the more I enjoy it even more. So if you're looking at one and you're worried and you're kind of waiting a little bit to go ahead and bite that bullet and jump into one, I would say jump into it sooner than later. I'm glad I got mine when I did, because as expensive as this thing is, and it is expensive, I'm not gonna lie, my first change is coming up, my 1K service, and they're gonna change all my fluids and all that stuff like that. Dude, that's like $460, almost $500. You know, it's expensive. And the bike, when I got it for over MSRP. You know, full transparency there. I think they got me on it for around $2,000 over MSRP. I think I got it for around that 18 rate, which is where I've seen quite a few others. That's what they got theirs at as well. So it's expensive, man. I'm not gonna say that it's not. But if you are definitely looking into getting one and you're ready for that, man, I'd say do it. The model year that came out after this one, this is a 2022, it got more expensive, and it's the same bike. I think they tacked on another $1,000 or $2,000 on top of the bike. And if it's $1,000 from Harley, then you know at the dealership they're probably going to push it for a couple more than that even. So the MSRP problem is only going to get worse. And so if that's the darn case, man, I'd get into you a bike that you like sooner than later, maybe, if that's what you're trying to do. It kind of worries me the direction they're pushing it, because more and more people I see online getting upset about how Harley is basically price gouging the shit out of everybody on all these bikes. You know, that's a killer, man. I mean, it's really depressing in a way, because that's going to drive more people away from them, and then they're going to slowly stop making things. And realistically, I do like Harley, but I'm not a Harley fanboy. I will say, when I first started, though, I kind of was. There was a reason why, other than power as well, that I also jumped off of that Suzuki, and that's because I wanted a Harley. That's why when I did jump off the Suzuki, better said, that I went to Harley and got a Harley, and not went and got myself something like the C90, which I should have totally done, because, you know, I got a really good deal on my C50. I picked it up for $2 grand with 3,000, a little over 3,000 miles on it for my first motorcycle. And this bike maybe had one chip in the paint, and it had some chrome oxidization on it, and that was it. Absolutely amazing bike. Thinking back on it now, I could have totally just went and sold that on the secondhand market and got a way better price, but I didn't. I went through Harley. But that's what you kind of get. But I did get myself into my Iron 1200, and I did really appreciate that bike, and I wouldn't take the decision back. Even though if I was to put my money where my brain is, I should have just went ahead and sold that bike on the secondhand market at the beginning of the next season and tried to find myself a C90 for around the same price. because I could have sold it for around $35,000, almost $4,000, and I could have bought myself a C90 for almost around that same price. It's kind of weird on the used market with them Jap bikes. But I appreciate everybody for coming along. This is my first 1,000-mile review on it. If you're thinking about grabbing one, go grab it, man. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for coming back on another one, you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all again.